Drafted in 1999 and ratified in 2003 by popular vote, the Cherokee Nation's Constitution provides the framework for our tripartite government and tribal laws. Osio Nagad, Jennifer Lauren Dawado. Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Lauren, Cherokee Nation citizen and host of Osio Voices of the Cherokee People and Senior Director of Cherokee Film. Welcome to Chalagi, wherever we are. Our Constitution is the single most important governing document for our tribe. The preamble to the Constitution reads, "We the people of the Cherokee Nation, in order to preserve our sovereignty, enrich our culture, achieve and maintain a desirable measure of prosperity and the blessings of freedom, acknowledging with humility and gratitude the goodness, aid, and guidance of the sovereign ruler of the universe in permitting us to do so, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the government of the Cherokee Nation." Today, 25 years later, we will discuss the history and motivation behind that Constitution. We'll start today's show with remarks from Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr. Then Chief will join me on the couch for a Q&A with another contributor to our 1999 Constitution, his father and former state representative, tribal councilor, and former Chief of Staff, Chuck Hoskin. Next, we will continue the constitutional discussion with Deputy Chief Bryan Warner and former Cherokee Nation Attorney General, Diane Hammons. And finally, we are excited to welcome Cherokee National Treasurer Robert Lewis back to the studio to share another story with us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and Principal Chief, Chuck Hoskin Jr. for his remarks.
Osio, today we're looking back at the 1999 Cherokee Nation Constitutional Convention. 25 years ago, our tribe, the largest tribe in the country, hosted a landmark event that has profoundly shaped our government in the ensuing decades. The Constitution that was created in 1999 is the foundation of our government and the tribe's success. Our Constitution provides the framework for how we defend our self-governance rights and advance our sovereignty. Drafted during a period of political and legal uncertainty, the new Constitution was a response to the inadequacies of our previous Constitution and the growth of our government since the 1970s, when Cherokee Nation elected its own leaders again and ratified the 1976 Constitution that preceded the 99 Constitution. Our previous document failed to offer stability and transparency, so 75-plus delegates to the convention, including my father and I, set to work to craft a new Constitution to address and strengthen the Cherokee Nation and ensure a robust government was able to work effectively for the citizens. The Constitution adheres to the principles of equality, transparency, and accountability. It created stronger protections for the democratic process, better defined citizenship processes, and considered the voices and concerns of the at-large citizens of our nation. The Cherokee Nation Constitution also redefined the balance of power within the government, clearly defining the responsibilities of each branch, and formally established the Supreme Court of the Cherokee Nation and cabinet members. In addition to executive and legislative term limits, it included the right to a Cherokee Nation delegate to Congress and processes for future constitutional amendments. The success of the 1999 Cherokee Nation Constitutional Convention was deeply influenced by the guidance of several leaders in modern Cherokee history. Those individuals, many of whom I consider my mentors, shaped a document that has grown and continues to grow with our thriving tribal government. The delegates emphasized the importance of adaptability, enabling the Constitution to evolve with the tribe's needs and citizenry. This collaborative effort in drafting a Constitution continues to serve as a point in our history that clearly defined our government's integrity and serves as the guiding principle in both our sovereignty and prosperity. Its adaptability, while preserving foundational stability, remains a testament to the foresight and tenacity of our ancestors and the delegates. The Cherokee Nation Constitutional Convention and the collective wisdom of the delegates should be justly remembered as a rich exchange of ideas that created an improved system of government. It stands as a lasting testament to the vision and resilience of the participants who laid the foundation for the Cherokee Nation's future at the end of the 20th century. Widow.
Well, no, Chief Hoskin and Representative Hoskin, how special to have you both here together at Cherokee Film Studios. Thank you so much for joining us to chat a little bit about the 1999 Constitutional Convention. So I guess let's start off with, can you remember and share your initial feelings upon being selected as a delegate for the 1999 Cherokee Nation Constitutional Convention?
Well, I was very excited and had kind of watched the process unfold because my father was on the council. You were on the council, and there was a series of field events. And I remember I think at large and within the reservation. And I got to attend a couple of those and see firsthand this really grassroots thing emerging. And then to be a delegate, that was just really exciting to me, I can tell you that.
Obviously, it was an honor for me, and it's very representative of what took place at the convention with my son sitting here and our age differences. And I have to hand it to the Constitutional Commission that put it together, their selection process. They selected from within the tribal government, they selected from the meetings they had at large throughout the United States, and then they even had a lottery to pick a certain number of people. So they did an outstanding job of getting a representative sample of all Cherokees, both ages and demographics. And so that made it an exciting time for all Cherokees to come together working toward one goal. So it was historic and it was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I bet. What a thing to witness. Well, how did the politics at the time within Cherokee Nation influence the approach to developing the new Constitution?
You know, I don't know how it approached it. You were closer to it than I was, but there certainly was some dramatic politics going on. I mean, there was a great deal of legal tension and political tension. If I remember right, it was at or near an election year, which is always exciting and interesting in Cherokee Nation. And so I'm sure it affected it, but I was impressed by the fact that a great many of us, including those who were responsible for getting this idea off the ground, seemed to just be focused on the process of doing something really important, not for the immediacy, but for the long term. So certainly there was drama around the process, but the process seemed very driven towards the fundamental idea that we needed to look at the Constitution.
And I agree, and being part of the government at that time on the council, there was a desire to stay away from the political side of it. And I go back to the commission, they did an outstanding job of trying to get the various groups in line and trying to bring together a good mix of people, regardless of what their stance or ideas were, to try to come together and work through any issues that exist. And again, I think they did an outstanding job.
Yeah, bringing people together, yeah. Were there any moments during the convention that you felt were particularly pivotal in shaping the final outcome? Anything?
You know, I've been thinking a lot about the whole process, and for one thing, it's been a long time.
Yeah,
it's been a
I
long
would have
time.
a hard time remembering
I think we
1999.
could look over transcripts and probably I could refresh my memory. But there were some moments that kind of captured my attention as a relatively young person learning as I was going. I can remember when they talked about the delegate to Congress and how that was going in the Constitution. I wasn't familiar with that until the Constitutional Convention. I saw the council, which my father was on, sort of be shaped as a stronger institution. I remember when the Speaker of the Council was placed in the Constitution, you all didn't have a Speaker before then, or a Deputy Speaker, which you became the Deputy Speaker.
No, the Deputy Chief actually was the President of the Council at that time, and so that was one change that came out of it. So. And we did look at the historical perspective of our great nation. You know, as early as 1827, our first Constitution, we came up with 3 branches of government. I mean, that was our belief forever and always. And so we strengthened that during this Constitution. The idea of blood quantum was debated many, many times at length. And it was determined that there should be no discrimination among Cherokee people. And so that won out the day on that particular thing. But I do remember that being a rather protracted discussion. There were a few of those kind of things, but again, it was always citizen driven. It was always what is best for not the Cherokee people right now, but what's going to be best for Cherokee people in the future. And so those decisions had to be made, and it was difficult. But again, the process worked, and I think the mixture of people there was able to make that work.
So were there any ideas or proposals that initially surprised you?
You know, I don't know in terms of surprise. I mentioned the delegate to Congress. Part of the surprise to me was I was unaware of that being something in a treaty that was then being brought into the framework of a constitution. So I suppose in the sense that I didn't know, it did surprise me. But, you know, I learned so much, I think we all did, about the history of the Constitution, because that would get brought up in the context of these different provisions. I mean, we had a mix of people who had a lot of different levels of knowledge, and to get to see that play out in that kind of forum was informative to me, certainly.
Yeah.
The idea of representation for at-large citizens was also a very big part of the Constitution, because again, going back to the commission, there was an attempt on their part to bring in Cherokees that lived outside the reservation, and they did a great job of doing that. So that discussion about how those individuals are represented was devoted a lot of time, as well as it should be. At that time, the members of the council, any member of the council could represent an at-large citizen. They could contact any one of us, and then we could carry that message to council. Well, at the convention, it was debated and discussed about let's set aside 2 council members to represent the at-large citizens. So that was a lengthy debate, and that was a discussion again, and it was all driven about how best to represent the Cherokee people. And so that decision was made, and it has worked out well.
Absolutely. So in what ways did the culture and values of the Cherokee Nation, do you think, influence the way that the discussions and debates unfolded during the convention, if they did?
You know, part of what I saw was a lot of civility in the midst of what we've already acknowledged, which was a really difficult time politically and in some ways legally in terms of some challenges at the time. And it's not that we all got along inside those chambers, but given what was at stake, given that these were Cherokees from all over the reservation, all from at-large areas, civility was the order of the day, which sometimes seems missing nowadays in a lot of the world that we live in, but it was there. And I think that's a Cherokee value, that, yeah, if we got along on everything, we wouldn't recognize each other as Cherokees because Cherokees disagree, but we were civil, I think, because we had a mission, and the mission we all felt was important. So I think that cultural value, among others, was on display.
I think the desire to try to address the needs of Cherokee families was really a driving force. You know, we've talked about from the youngest Cherokee to the oldest Cherokee and all in between, and how the needs of those individuals need to be protected and needed to be addressed, and how our government could best serve those people. And so I think that's, from a historic perspective, that's the way the Cherokees have always believed. And so we simply continued it. And the chief is correct. Sometimes it would start out in somewhat of a debate, but sooner rather than later, it would evolve into what's best for the family, what's best for the Cherokee families. And that's how we looked at it, and that's how we moved forward.
I'm hearing some pretty familiar themes throughout this conversation of what our leadership looks like today. I feel like, did this have an influence on you in your leadership style?
Well, it had an unmistakable influence on me in many ways. First of all, it was my first foray into any kind of public service to the Cherokee Nation. I had sort of lived vicariously through my father, who was elected on council, and I would follow his moves and watch council meetings when I could. But to be there as part of really a governmental body, a group of citizens, always impacted me. It really told me you can make a difference as a Cherokee if you have the desire to serve. And I've been trying to do that ever since. The idea that Cherokees have a lot of different opinions, but we can find a way to come together, that is something that's informed what I've tried to do since I became chief, because I don't think any chief serves during a time in which people are just getting along on absolutely everything. There's always something that could divide us, and so what I've tried to remember is there's a lot more we have in common, and we demonstrate that. And we demonstrated that at the convention, which, by the way, the final document was a unanimous approval, as I recall.
That's correct.
And, you know, we can achieve that in a lot of things, big and small, in public service to the Cherokee Nation. So it made an unmistakable, I think, positive impact on me.
And mentorship, was that a big part of the convention?
There's no question. We had previous leaders who advised us. We had previous leaders who gave us comments and said, you know, we've tried this and this didn't work. We've tried this and this worked. We'd recommend that you continue doing this. So that mentoring really helped move us forward. And when you stop to think about what took place over a course of 9 days by just a little over 70 people, that created something that exists today. And again, our Constitution is a living document. We have the ability to amend it when necessary. But just the body itself that came out of those 9 days, it really pretty impressive.
It is absolutely impressive. So I want to ask, what are your hopes and aspirations for future generations of the Cherokee Nation in light of the foundational work done at the convention?
Well, I hope we continue to recognize the value of the principles in the Constitution, and they're really important. They were strengthened, I think, in this Constitution compared to the one that preceded that, which you began your service under, in that now there are clear roles for each branch of government. I think there's a degree of transparency that the Constitution requires that's good government. You take all of those together, strong institutions within the government, transparent and equal, that I hope continues on. Now the Constitution's going to change. It's inevitable that there'll be some amendment here or there. The Cherokee people just had occasion earlier in 2024 to consider whether to open it up to a whole convention, and the Cherokee people voted not to do that, but they'll have another opportunity in the decades to come. But I think no matter what the specific wording is or the amendments, I think those principles that we ought to have equality in the Cherokee Nation, that we ought to have a government that's representative of the people and equally balanced. If those things continue, we'll be in good shape. That's what I take away from it.
And I agree. I think it brought about a greater degree of respect among the branches of government, each one responsible for the job that is so important to the Cherokee people. And moving forward, again, I go back to the Constitution has to be a living document. It has to change. It may be somewhat perfect for today, but that may not be tomorrow. And so we have to make sure the future allows for these amendments, just like the Chief was talking about. And our Constitution does that. We have a good, solid Constitution, but yet it allows for change when change is needed.
Any final thoughts from either of you?
Well, I have such fond memories of that constitutional convention, but it's interesting. At the time, we thought it would last, a few days, and it ended up lasting much longer. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. To be able to serve alongside my father, personally very important to me. But just to have been a part of that and to help create a document that's, I think, stood the test of time. That's important to me, but it all starts with the Cherokee people. And think about how we described how this process started. It was very grassroots. It was out in the field, so to speak, getting people's opinion. And what happened? The Cherokee people, through their wisdom, created a document that works.
Absolutely.
Any problems that exist were set aside during that time. And that was an amazing time. If you were there, you understood how difficult some of the things were that were going on, but that was set aside for the best interest of the Cherokee people. And I think the Chief sitting here today is a great example of individuals taking part in their government. He took part as a young man, and today he's Chief. And so I would encourage, as we move forward as a people, that individuals step forward and say, I want to be part of this nation. I want to be part of the government of this nation. I want to be part of helping Cherokee people. And as long as we do that, the Cherokee Nation is going to be great.
And I know that you all are willing to be mentors. I've seen it in action. We're so grateful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here and for your leadership throughout all of the years. We really are truly grateful for both of you, and it's been an honor to have you both here to talk about this important convention.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next, we join Deputy Chief Bryan Warner and former Cherokee Nation Attorney General Diane Hammons to continue the discussion about the history and impact of the 1999 Constitutional Convention. Deputy Chief?
Wado, Jen. Siona God, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for Cherokees wherever we are. Today's guest is Miss Diane Hammons. We are here at the beautiful campus of Northeastern State University, where 25 years ago, men and women came together for the Cherokee Nation Constitution Convention. Well, welcome, Diane. I hope you've had a great day, and thank you for joining us. I know many things have changed from 25 years ago, and so really my first question, let's let the audience, I really want the people to know, because certainly most are going to know what you were doing back then. You were such a visible figure in the Cherokee Nation, but what are you doing today?
Little bit of a lot of different things.
Yes, yeah.
I'm a federal contractor with the Bureau of Indian Affairs doing tribal court assessments, trying to get them funds, really, is the purpose of that. So go around the country visiting other tribal courts.
Okay.
I still teach here at NSU. I'm an adjunct in the Criminal Justice Department. And then I'm chief judge at the Quapaw Nation, up where I grew up in Ottawa County.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I did a little bit of background. So you come from a long line of educators, is that correct?
I do.
Yes.
My mother and father were both teachers,
Well,
and my brother.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's very fitting. Here we are at NSU, and
Right.
this was the place where if you wanted to be a teacher, you came to this area. Well, thank you for your time and service. So let's bounce back 25 years ago. What was your role then at the Cherokee Nation?
So 25 years ago, at the Constitutional Convention, I think I was unemployed. I had been the prosecutor
Yes, ma'am.
for the Cherokee Nation, and I think I was unemployed or underemployed. Had two of my three kids were still at home. They were little. They're now 30 and 28, so
Right.
you can do the
Yes,
math,
ma'am.
25 years
Yes, ma'am.
ago. Yes.
Yes, well, you had your hands full, no doubt, then at that point. So, and now we're talking about bringing in Cherokees to talk about a constitution. I mean, in its own, whether we're talking about sweet potato pie or good hog meat, I mean, it can be a difference of opinion.
Sure.
So, nonetheless, bringing in and coming in to talk about the something as important as our Constitution, what were some of the challenges you felt like you faced during that time?
There was, it had been a divisive time in the nation. There had been a lot going on, and there was, as there is in this country today, in the United
ma'am.
States, divisiveness and factionalism and, whose side were you on, and, lots of different things going on. And so, different folks nominated people to be on the Constitutional Convention. I think the legislative body nominated some, the judiciary, the executive, and then maybe there were some selected by the community. So it really was a very diverse and robust group of people, right? And we worked really hard. And, even people that I was reading through, looking at some of the questions beforehand, and it talked about moments of community. And I remember there were some other lawyers on the Constitutional Convention, and some of us had supported different, candidates for office and may have been on different sides. But whenever there were legal questions, people would look at us, and so then we were just lawyers, for the Cherokee Nation. So it really was, at the time, I thought that perhaps it was not a good time for a Constitutional Convention. And looking back, I think it was probably the absolute right time.
Right. Well, that makes so much sense. And so, trying to not only, you've got all the different opinions that are in the room, the different personalities in the room, but the one thing, well, there's some founding principles that everybody kind of agreed to and went along with. What were those?
To be courteous to each other, which we were. Jay Hanna was the MC, the moderator, who kept us going, and we worked long hours. I remember him taking off his dress shoes and walking around in his sock feet, you know, calling for questions and calling for discussion and all that. So it was a lot of hard work. Sometimes, you know, we'd have to scramble to make sure that we had enough people there for a particular vote, because it went on over several days, you know, and people had lives, and people were working, and so you had to have a quorum.
You bet.
So
Oh,
there were a lot of things going on.
Yes, ma'am, as there still are today. I think that's what people tend to forget. There's things that come along like this, but we all have our outside lives, and Cherokees, they treasure that outside life. So another thing that people treasure, historical facts and significance of what we're doing and maintaining that level of integrity, but also faced with making some changes. How did you guys handle that?
You know, I think everyone wanted to make the government stronger. And build in those protections for longevity, you know, not for us, you know, but for the future. And I think that we did that. You know, we certainly had a lot to build on. We had the examples of Cherokee government in the past. We had the examples of outside government, so we could see what worked and what didn't. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, we all were Cherokees, and it was very important to us to try to strengthen the governmental framework that we already had and build it so it would be more robust in the future.
You bet. Well, and you mentioned earlier, you talked about that community, and you guys are all there representing the communities that are all out in our Cherokee Nation reservation, and those that live outside of that, they want to feel that sense of that. Did that play a specific role in kind of holding this team of differing opinions on, like you said, that was factional, but we come in with these principles, these guidelines. How did that sense of community hold everyone together?
It really did, and some of the most making sure that everyone had representation was, I think, always on everyone's mind. So some of the most vigorous debate, you know, I remember was, you know, how you were going to set up the delegates and the representation for people outside of the 14 counties. And what was that going to look like? I remember that being, of course, you know, I haven't looked at the record in forever, but I think that was probably the biggest part of the discussions.
That's really interesting. I know
And you know, those discussions still go on today, Deputy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What do the precincts look like? What's representation?
Right. I mean, we just went through redistricting, or the council did, you know, and I thought they handled it really well. And there was one thing that I really enjoyed about that was being Cherokee is truly everyone was like, no, we can't. We got to think about how this looks from every single angle. And in tribal governments, and whether I'm on the Tribal Advisory Committee for the CDC, and when I first got on there, I was at-large delegate. Well, I'm there representing the Cherokee Nation, but it felt a bigger honor. I represented the totality of Indian country across the nation, and so I wanted, you know, if it's going to be about us, not without us type attitude, and I think that comes from the work that you and your colleagues did at that time, and that's something that I still see resonating today within the halls of the council, within the administration, and everyone. You know, you mentioned balancing these things, but I was curious to hear of any dialogue amongst everyone, whether it be when the clock was on or off the clock, about how this work was really positioning the Cherokee Nation to a position of strength for the future. As you said, I mean, you guys were basically, you're there planting a seed to provide shade at a later time. So tell me about those conversations.
Well, you know, we really wanted to strengthen the government because I think we were all afraid, you know, because of what had been going on, and we were all afraid of what that meant for the future of the Cherokee Nation and what our appearance to the outside, right? Because we'd been on the national news in a bad way in the years before that. So we were all, I think, very cognizant of that. So, things like staggered terms for elected officials and making the marshal and the attorney general a constitutional position,
Yes.
and really shoring up the separation of powers and the protections for employees and the due process and civil rights of Cherokee citizens. All of those things, as I said, we had a framework. We weren't starting from a blank page. We had the framework of the nation, as it existed since time immemorial. And then, of course, we had the outside government. So we didn't want to do, we could learn from them by good example and
Yes, ma'am.
bad example.
Right.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. No, that the way you're mentioning there about the employee base and protecting the employees, that's something that I think about often, our employee protections that are in place, and thank you all for doing that, because they mean so much. I think a lot of times we forget about that base of individuals because we've all become accustomed to the service that they provide. So when we're looking at sovereignty and self-governance, how do you feel that this the 99 Constitution strengthened those two entities?
I really think the process itself, having particularly, we've been in turmoil, having us all come together for that period of time and work together and get the product and make it a product that we were proud of. I think that was important to us inside the Cherokee Nation and outside the Cherokee Nation. Well, maybe they can fuss and fight, but when it comes to something important, they're going to bind together and get the work done, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then the product itself, I have the benefit of traveling across Indian country a lot, and some tribes even today, Deputy, don't have constitutions. They may have bylaws or something like that. Having that organic, strong constitution, and I think ours is strong with the governmental powers defined and the protections that are built in. I think that really gives us a base for strong government, and sovereignty is just the exercise of government. And if you're going to do it, you want to do it correctly.
Right, exactly. Well, we often talk about sovereignty, and it's only as good as how much you exercise that, whether it be via compacting and all the different things. But we hear a lot about self-governance issues. Lately, I've been working on a lot of food sovereignty and helping the USDA understand self-governance tribes and different things. So thank you for the work that you've done, because it's not just, like you said, there was a template that you guys had to work from, but I'm very intrigued about the other tribes around the nation and your work currently, your ability to go out and talk to those. How do you feel that, obviously the exercise during the 99 Constitution Convention helped you get to this point. Were there anything else that you've done in the past that has put you in a position today to help strengthen other tribal nations?
I truly believe that we are only as strong as our weakest link.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I hope that, what I've learned through my work at Cherokee Nation, through my work on the Constitution, I hope that helps me share some of that with other folks, and talk to them about best practices, because I tell everyone when we go out to do those court assessments that tribal courts are an important aspect of tribal sovereignty, and I would never intentionally do anything to hurt a tribal court, and I want us all to succeed. So I do think that background helps me in my present work. I really do.
Yes, ma'am. Well, obviously you come from a long line of educators. Knowledge is something that is key to being an educator, but the other key that I found when I was working in education was the ability to transfer that knowledge to individuals so that they can take it and do something with it. So thank you. And Diane, thank you for this time that we've had today. I know that there's Cherokees all over the world out there that will tune in and learn a little bit more, and it's great talking with you and getting some of the tiny details in there. I'm certain that we will come across our paths once again, but Diane, thank you for being here, and it was great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
My
ma'am.
pleasure.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, Wado, Jen, and now back to you.
What an impactful time in our history. Wado, thank you very much, Deputy Chief Warner and former Attorney General Hammons, for sharing all of that information. And now one of my favorites. We are joined in studio by Cherokee National Treasure storyteller Robert Lewis. Take it away, Robert.
OCO, my name is Robert Lewis. Isil Dogwado. Isil is my Cherokee name. Here is your story for today. A long time ago, when all the animals would talk to us, they would tell us stories. And one of the special ones we would hear would be about Turtle and Thunder. Turtle and Thunder were the best of friends. They would hang out together. They would play together. And as Turtle and Thunder would go out into the woods, they would sit there and they'd love to go fishing. Well, one day Turtle gets up and he walks in on out, and Thunder comes down from the sky and says, "Let's go fishing today." Turtle says, "I would like to go fishing. I will race you to the pond." So they start to run towards the pond. Now, Thunder knows that Thunder can outrun Turtle any day of the week, but Turtle's Thunder's friend. Turtle is going along as fast as Turtle can. And anybody's ever watched a turtle run, they run like this. Whoa! And as Thunder's running right behind Turtle, Thunder's looking at Turtle saying, "Oh, you're so fast. Look how fast you run. I can't even keep up with you. Look at you. Dust is getting in my face and eyes." They get all the way to the pond. And when they get to the pond, Turtle says, "Hey, I won." Thunder says, "Yes, you did. Maybe one day I'll beat you." So they begin to fish. As they start to fish, they hear a rumble in the sky. Thunder looks up and goes, "Uh-oh." Turtle says, "What's wrong?" "I think I left my clothes and dirty socks and toys all over my room. I got to go pick it up and clean up. Mom and Dad are upset, and I got to go take care of that." So Thunder, hands together, goes straight up into the sky. Turtle looks up and goes, "Wow. Too bad you can't run fast. You fly pretty good, though." And then Turtle says, "I guess I'll go home." So Turtle starts to head on home. As Turtle starts to head on home, Turtle hears a rustle in the brush and turns and looks. And here comes some wolves. And the wolves gather around that Turtle, and the wolves say, "Hey, Turtle, we want to play a game. We know you can make a really good ball. Why don't you roll up in your shell? We want to toss you around, play a really good game." Turtle goes, "Okay," because Turtle can't fight the wolves. So Turtle goes inside that shell. And once Turtle goes inside that shell, those wolves grab that Turtle and begin to throw it around, kick it around, toss it around, tossing it back up in the air, and Turtle's little feet come out going, "Ah!" Finally, after catching and playing with that Turtle for about an hour, the wolves say, "That's a good game, Turtle. We'll come back, play some more." And the wolves go running off into the woods. Turtle gets up, dusts all off, and goes, "Oh, I don't like them wolves. They come around, they toss me around. That's just not fair. I wish I could do something, but I'm just a turtle." Turtle starts to head on home. As Turtle makes her way through the woods, here's Rustle in the woods again. Turns and looks. Panthers come out. And the Panthers say, "Hey, we were talking to the wolves. They say you'd make a good ball. We've been looking for something to play with, work with our skills here, try to catch things. Why don't you roll up in your shell?" Turtle goes, "Okay." Can't fight the Panthers either. Goes inside that shell. Panthers all rear back, and then it's like a cat playing with a ball. They start smacking that Turtle all over the place. Into the woods, into the rocks, into the fields, against the trees. Again, after an hour, they stop and say, "That was a good game. I like that game. Turtle, you make a good ball. We'll see you later." The Panthers run off into the woods. Turtle gets up and goes, "I don't believe this. Look at my shell. It's got scratches on it, too. Look where that wolf bit me. Oh, I'm going to go home." Turtle starts again to head on home. Again, Rustles in the woods, stops and looks, and Turtle sees bears coming out of the woods. The bear says, "We talked to the wolves and the Panthers. We've been looking for a good game. We hear you make a good ball. Why don't you roll up in your shell?" Turtle goes, "I don't believe this." Gets back inside that shell, and again the bears start to kick and punch and roll and push and roll that Turtle all over the fields and into the rocks and into the trees. Again, after an hour, they said, "That was a good game. We're going to head on home." Then one of the bears says, "Wait, why don't we go get the wolves and the Panthers? Let's make a big game of this. Turtle, you wait right here." And the bears spread out to go get the Panthers and the wolves. Turtle goes, "Oh, I wish I could just go home and hide. I wish they would just leave me alone." Turtle takes a step, and when Turtle takes a step, steps on a stick and breaks it. Turtle goes, "Whoa, I broke a stick." Reaches up, picks up that stick, says, "Sticks come from trees. Trees are tough. Trees are big. I can break a tree. I'm tougher than a tree. If I broke this stick, that means I could break a tree. I don't have to take this anymore. They better leave me alone. I wonder if I can do it again. Turtle reaches down, grabs another stick, and breaks it. I did it again. I am stronger than a tree. I am strong and tough. I'm mighty, and I'm already beautiful. About that time, here come the bear, panthers, and wolves, and they all gather around. We're ready for a game. Roll up into your shell. We want to make you for another ball. Turtle says, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Watch what I can do. Look. Turtle reaches down, grabs a stick, holds up to all of them, and then breaks it. See that? And all the animals go, yeah. Turtle says, I broke these sticks. Sticks come from trees. I am tougher than a tree. That means I don't need to take this anymore. No more biting my shell, no more scratching my shell, no more tossing me around. Y'all better leave me alone, because I'm a mighty warrior now. And Turtle throws those sticks down in front of all those animals. Bears, panthers, and wolves all look at each other, scratch their heads, says, can't break a stick. And then the wolf says, I think the turtle's lost his mind. Let's just leave the turtle alone. So they all back off and they go into the woods. Turtle says, hey, that worked. They're going to leave me alone. This turned out to be a good day. Thunder comes back from the sky. And Thunder says, hey, Turtle, I'm here. You want to go play some more? Turtle says, no. I'm sorry. I have no time to play. I'm a mighty warrior now. I can break sticks. I'm stronger than trees. I'm tough and mighty, as well as being beautiful. Thunder looks sad and says, oh, well, I don't know if I'm a warrior or not. Does that mean we can't be friends anymore? We can't play together? Turtle says, you know what? You're my only friend. You came here. We went fishing. I tell you what, if you can be a mighty warrior like me, we can still be friends. I'll teach you. Turtle reaches down, grabs up a stick and says, see this stick? You got to break it. You got to break it to be a mighty warrior. Breaks that stick. Look at that. See that? Sticks come from trees. That means we're tough and mighty. So let's see you break a stick. Thunder looks around and says, okay. And as Thunder's looking around, Turtle says, here, try this one. Thunder says, no, that's too small. Turtle says, well, here's another one. No, that's too small. Turtle grabs a branch. What about this one? It's kind of big. Thunder goes, no. I got an idea. Turtle, why don't you move out of the way? Turtle scoots over. A little bit more. And as Turtle scoots out of the way, Thunder shoots straight up into the sky. Thunder turns the whole sky dark and black. And as the sky gets dark and black, all the animals look up and they all begin to scatter. The wind picks up and Turtle's looking up, and then hears this voice come from the clouds. Watch this, Turtle. A lightning bolt comes out, blows the biggest oak tree in the forest to tiny splinters. Kaboom! Turtle sees this and does this. Ah! Runs and screams, and as Turtle's running as hard as he can, dives to the bottom of that pond and hides. And to this day, when you see turtles, they all still think they're strong and mighty. They just crawl up on logs, they'll crawl up on rocks, their heads up high and proud. They still think they're strong, tough, mighty warriors and beautiful. But whenever thunder comes rolling in across the sky, all those turtles look up and they all dive to the bottom of the pond. Because all those turtles know who the mightiest warrior of all is, and that's Thunder. And that's your story for today. Wado.
Hawa, Wado, Robert. That is going to do it for us today. We hope you found today's show educational and inspirational, perhaps. Our Constitution lays the framework for our success as a sovereign nation, both today and for the next 7 generations. Cherokees have no word for goodbye. We say, Dodadago Ha'i. Until we see each other again, Wado.